regular meeting. Today is February the 6th, and we are calling this meeting at order at 6 p.m. May I have a roll call?
Daryl Anderson, Beverly Raymond, Christopher Smith, Ellen Clark, Harold Doucette, Jerry LeBeau,
Here.
Melvin Getwood. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Can invocation and pledge, Mr. Doucette, on your way out?
I'll recite the Lord's Prayer in unison. Our Father,
Lord in heaven, kingdom come, will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen.
The kingdom, the power,
and the glory. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You all had received a copy of the minutes of the special, regular, and annual minutes. Are there any questions? Can I get a motion?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion passed. We have one presentation tonight from the Port Arthur Community Federal Credit Union.
Thank y'all for allowing us to speak today. And these are some of our board members and supervisory committee members. We've been really excited since June to start this relationship, this partnership, and bring financial institutions back downtown. As a matter of fact, we're so excited about it. I actually applied for an NCUA grant, and the credit union has been granted $30,000 to market our business down here. But so far, we have not been able to come to a consensus on our contract. And we just felt it was time to maybe discuss it with y'all and see if maybe we can figure out what is actually going on. When we first went to the building, we were told that the adjacent door next to where we are located would be our main entrance, is the way Jana Barnes had put it to us, Jeff and myself. She had told us even that the seating up front could be more or less our lobby, knowing that it would be accessible to everybody in the business, but that it would be accessible to us, especially if we had made like a petition wall and kept members from being able to jump over and that kind of thing. Since we've all learned since COVID that you want to keep a limited number of people out, Janice said that that would be accessible to us. When we received the contract, we were told that the door next to us would not be opened at all. We got the contract originally. We did not receive this contract till December 12th. We received it on December 12th when Jeff and I drove down here and we spoke to Miss Crystal. That's the first time we ever seen the contract. We had a number of issues in the contract. They've all been addressed with the exception of the adjacent door. So we asked for a meeting. We met with Crystal and Mr. Stokes, and Mr. Stokes informed us that the only way that door would be open is if we posted a guard at our expense, and it would be our expense only. That's the only way that door would be open. I brought up the cost of that and what that would cost us, and that there's no way we could afford that. And I was told that it was not the EDC's problem, it was my problem. So we looked at the second revised contract. The second revised contract addressed all the issues again, with the exception of the adjacent door. The adjacent door, at that point, we were told that the adjacent door would have to be closed, and that the way the wording was, we felt like we were responsible for comings and goings out of that door. I proposed a memorandum of understanding, and my memorandum of understanding basically stated that there would be someone at the front main entrance, because right now there is not. I've been there a lot of times that I've had to walk all the way across the building to allow people in because there is nobody at that front entrance. So we propose that there is somebody at that entrance from 8 to 5 as long as the credit union is open. And then I made a second addendum to that and said, additionally, the adjacent door to the suite is an exit door. No matter how much we may want to lock the door, it is an emergency exit and it cannot be locked from the inside out. And so what I said was, it is usually registered by all tenants. I've watched tenants use it, and I've also watched your maintenance guys use it. Port Arthur community and staff will not be held liable for any person exiting the adjacent door or someone holding it and saying, hold that door, let me let you in. In turn, we ended up getting a second amendment. This is the third contract, and it reads, it shall be the policy of the landlord to maintain a front door access to the building during normal business hours, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, excluding holidays, and to keep any additional exits. Now, prior to this, all the contracts were the adjacent door. Now it says any additional exits within the building locked and secured from outside business access. Tenant shall be responsible for any outside exits into the building from any additional exit doors unless it is effectuated by tenants' employees, tenants' invitees, and tenants' contractors. So primarily the way we take this is now, if you come into my credit union, you're an invitee, and now I'm responsible for every door you enter or you exit into, which is just unfair because truthfully, I don't even know how many exit doors there are in the building. That is a huge building. And now the wording has changed that we are responsible for anybody that exits that door. And then the next thing I would say is when we spoke with Mr. Stokes, he made the reference that the direction of the building has changed. It is the board and my concern, me as the manager of the credit union, is how has the direction changed and why are we worried about this door so much that it's now being put on the credit union? Because, I mean, we were originally like the building was going to be open, you know, there would be 200 people running through, and now it's like there is, the direction of the whole building has changed. If the direction of the building has changed, then I think the credit union needs to know it. I mean, we already have $50,000 in furniture and equipment already invested in this. I have 2 staff members already hired and been put on payroll since September of last year. And we just need to know what's going on because we feel like we're not getting correct answers. Do you have anything to add?
So just in conclusion, I just want to say, you know, we're a partner with the city, our employees and our citizens. And I think it's crucial that we have banking downtown for everyone who lives here. It's very important. And Port Arthur community has been in the city for 75 years, started because of employees came together and wanted a credit union. So this is vital. I know y'all understand that. And I just feel like it's necessary that we get this situation handled and open up as soon as we can. So thank you all very much.
Questions?
Folks, I want to hear the other side of it before I comment.
Yes, directors, make sure that you have a copy of the lease that is being referenced. It's always difficult when you don't have the document in front of you, certainly. And as was referenced, see that back in December of this past year, a letter was provided to us by Ms. McGuss and outlined a number of concerns that her and her team had as it related to the lease that had been presented to them at that particular time. And I was concerned that things were being held up because of the transition of having a new CEO. And I did not want that to be the case. So I directed my folks, along with Charles' team, to see if we could get this language as quickly as we can within whatever is feasible and appropriate for your regular building in terms of the tenants in the building. As Mr. Bill pointed out in the statement of the obvious, we're going to have a myriad of tenants all under the umbrella of entrepreneurship as we roll out that facility. So if you just go through very quickly the items that were of concern, I'll just go bullet by bullet. Building access to public, especially door next to our street, articulated that very simply for the security of all. That door has to remain locked. Again, we're going to be taking in a myriad of tenants, all of whom will be expecting a measure of security for their property and person, as well as the tenant of the credit union. So, as we pointed out, I'm not sure that I articulated that it was their problem and not ours. It is a partnership, and we're all concerned about making sure that everything is secure within that entire facility, and everyone will be operating businesses in that facility. Yes, we offer the opportunity that as the door remains secure, if they want to host the guard at their expense, they certainly do that. It was explained that would be cost prohibitive. So we understand this decision. Upon therefore, what our people need to put into the language of the lease that you have in front of you, is not for the commencement of the credit union's operation. The main front entrance door will remain open and monitored during normal business hours from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. All other entrances will remain locked. There have been times, as Ms. McGuinness pointed out, that she's been over and perhaps there wasn't someone on guard. Well, they haven't commenced their operation. But the commitment we are making and that we have put in writing is that once that starts, there will be someone on spot at the front at all times between 8 and 5. And the door will be accessible. Okay? That particular language is codified on page 7 of the document that I provided you, section 14.1, subsection H. Let me just go through quickly.
Yeah.
Item number 2, our lease says 1 year, but we agreed to 5 with the option to renew for 5 additional years. Call your attention to the chronological page 2, label page I. You'll see where the term of the lease is 5 years. Items 3 and 7 go together. They deal with signage. Our signage with our name as agreed. For instance, we were told that the EDC would provide another sign that would complement the building. And in item 7, we are not comfortable with section 13 signs in the lease agreement. We were told that we could put out A-frame type signs and other signs when we have promotions. Call your attention to page 6, section 13, labeled signs, within which we provide the credit union permission to erect a metal sign on the front and back face of the building, as with other tenants that we have granted that permission at their expense, like our other 2 anchor tenants, with prior approval of the design by the Economic Development Corporation. Additionally, the same section provides clarity and outlining the allowance of A-frame signs as well as the tenant provided signage, again, with prior approval of the EDC. Item number 4 from the December 19th letter. We were asked to put an ATM inside the building. We have agreed and have started the process. However, the building will not be open to the public as originally stated, and we may need to reconsider and place it in the other building. First and foremost, the ATM was approved for the first floor in the lobby. So again, that is already addressed in the lease. But I will note, and Rutgers, you are certainly aware of this, the press building is not a public building in the sense that most people would take it. It's going to have a myriad of a mixed-use function with a myriad of businesses in there, unlike, say, a city hall, which only has one function, government. We will have all kinds of businesses in there, and so it's incumbent upon the corporation to ratchet up the level of security to make sure that everyone's business is functioning safely and securely. Item 5, we also asked the previous building manager if we could put our own security system in our suite, and was informed, yes, we asked that it be put in the lease agreement. That has been codified, and that has been approved. Lastly, we're not comfortable with section 6.4, relocation space in the lease agreement. Section 6.4 in the agreement that has been provided and was removed. And so, sum total, with the exception of a door to their left, I believe the EDC, in conjunction with our legal team, addressed every one of their items that could be feasibly addressed from their December 19th letter to myself.
This, from what I'm gathering, you have an issue with the side door or the exit door where you all are located not being used for an entrance and exit, and that's based on information Janner told you all, okay? And I've heard a couple of times where there's a mention by someone what Janner said. You know, even whatever she said, it would have had to go into a contract. And it went into the contract, it had to come here. And we approve it. So when the contract is being drawn up, then that's the time to understand this is what it's going to be. And that's the contract. So as far as that building and that door, from what I'm hearing, the entrance is supposed to be for all tenants. And correct me if I'm wrong, CEO, all tenants are supposed to come in through the front. That's for the building. I'm kind of off now because we say that 8 to 5. So if the building, do we have anybody in there right now? Do we have one bed?
All the tenants?
Yeah. Okay, if we have other tenants, then there should be someone in the front from 8 to 5. No one should say, I go over there and somebody not in there, because if that's the entrance we want people to use, then we should have someone there from 8 to 5. And therefore, everyone have access in accordance with not this contract, but how we want the building to operate. Everyone. So no one should have to, as she said, she should not have to walk around. So if we leasing that building out, and our policy is that everybody come through the front, then we should have somebody there, 8 to 5. And I think that will eliminate that. As far as the door and stuff, I think that's the way it is. Every tenant going in the building, there's not one rule, it's for everybody. But we need to make sure that any tenants we have, we make happy and we work with them. Sometimes we could fudge a little bit here to help people. So yes, there's one rule, but what can we do to make tenants happy? So I guess what I want to know from you You brought up the door. The door is not supposed to be a private entrance. That ain't gonna happen. I support that. You coming in and somebody out there at 8 to 5, that ain't gonna happen. Because if we can't man it, then we need to open the doors and give you access to it so you could get in on time. So we need to fix that. But from my standpoint, what is it that we can do without going against what we have to make you happy?
Okay, I agreed to sign the second contract. I had a few board members read it, and our concern was the wording in it made us responsible for any of our members who may be using that as an entrance and an exit. Again, I have seen your current tenants prop that door open, and they use it as an entrance and an exit. I've seen it, I've witnessed that. My suggestion in my memorandum of understanding was I can control myself and my staff. I cannot ask a member, don't hold that door open for the next person. I just can't. It's not feasible to do that.
And to tell you the truth, I absolutely agree with you. That ain't your job. That's not your job to monitor that door. That's why that door should be locked. That's why I support locking the door. You should not be responsible for it, and nobody. And at the same token, the door is not accessible. However, just as you said someone else was doing it, if you're gonna bring something that's to the back, then you could go out the back. You know, I don't see whereby this door cannot be used by tenants. That's to go out, but to leave it where it's accessible, that is, because you mentioned maintenance. Yes, people working and it's going to be going in and out that building from that entrance, you know. So it's not like the door is not to be used or to be locked 24/7, but it's supposed to be controlled who comes in. That's what it's about. Authorized. That's the proper word to use, authorized. So someone who is authorized to come through the door, they should have a key to come in. And if they don't have a key to come in, they ain't getting in, because all our tenants use the front. But now once you're in the building, if you had to go out, then you can go from inside, you and somebody else, but you're not responsible. You should not be responsible for nobody using that door. And I mean, and I don't think it's written in here. Can you say where it's written that
I don't know if
somebody
he
go
gave
through
y'all
it?
the latest contract that we were given, but it's on page 7 of the latest contract. It literally says that tenant shall not be responsible for any outside access into the building from the additional exit doors unless such as access was effectuated by tenant's employees, tenant's invitees, and tenant's contractors.
Excuse me, which one? I'm on 7, where we are?
H, right there.
H?
Hey,
Okay. Should be possible, you know, to maintain effective access to the building during normal hours, and to keep additional exit doors within the building locked and secured from outside access to the building. Tenants shall not be responsible for an outside access into the building. Well, that's what I thought that's what I just said.
But what it's saying is if anybody is affiliated with the credit union, so meaning if anybody in that building becomes a member of our credit union, now we're responsible by the way this wording is in here. And now it's not just the adjacent door. It has been turned into all the exit doors. And again, I don't even know how many exit doors. I don't have a blueprint to be able to monitor it.
Okay, then, well, you know, that's something that we can identify with. If that's an issue, that's what I want to hear. Because I just said it, you're not going to be responsible for any door. Okay, that's it. And that's why I said if the doors are locked from the outside, People can't come from the outside in, but you can exit. And if you're inside, that means you came in through the front, so you are authorized to be in. So if you go out, sir, okay, sir. Yeah, no, well, sir, we're gonna give you an opportunity. We're gonna give you an opportunity.
On what you're talking about right
No,
now.
no.
So,
Yeah, but you'll have an opportunity to speak.
Okay.
All you have to do is, whenever she's through and we're through here, all you have to do is just raise your hand and the chairman will acknowledge you, and anyone can speak. But right now, let's finish. Okay, yes, please.
This on? Oh, it is on. Okay, all right. This doesn't say what you say that it says. I mean, I appreciate that you interpreted it that way, but that isn't, the word effectuate doesn't mean that you're responsible for anybody and everybody that may come through that door who may be doing business with you. Effectuated means that you initiated it. You either gave someone permission to do it, you gave access to somebody to do it. One of y'all as an entity authorized it, something like that. That's what this means. It doesn't mean that you are responsible for anybody and everybody that might come through that door. The word effectuated was used for a reason. And the reason is that word means that you have to actually put it into motion, essentially. You have to authorize it, to use your words. So it doesn't mean that you have responsibility for anybody and everybody. So an example, the example given. If one of your members comes in through that door because somebody else opened it, you're not responsible for that just because it's your member. Somebody else effectuated that. You didn't effectuate that. That's an example.
Well, I don't understand why it's changed from the adjacent door to all doors.
I don't know the answer to that question.
I tell you, for security, I mean.
Yeah, my guess is
It's for security purposes. We want one entrance, that we're gonna put somebody there, and all our tenants and people gonna come in. So that person there, that's why that person gonna be at the door, to make sure that anyone coming in the building is authorized. That's why we have the one entrance. And that's why we put somebody there for me. And that's why I made the point to tell the CEO, if we got tenants in there, somebody gonna be at the front door. It's that simple. Why? Because that's what we said. We said we will man this door from 8 to 5. And that's what we got to do because it's in the contract. You should not come to that door and have to go around the side during 8 to 5. So we need to get a good understanding of the contract, and I guess he explained it, and that's why I want to make sure that we hear what you're saying to make sure that we can accommodate or we can work things out so that everybody can be happy. You know, we want happy tenants. You know, we don't want tenants that we don't want to work with or something of that nature. But, you know, I'm not going to keep talking because we got other board members, but I just wanted to cover the things that I had jotted down. And the last thing was the sign, but he read the signage, so I'm pretty straight on that. But if you have any questions of me?
No, sir, I appreciate it.
Well,
Now,
thank you.
I understand, good evening, I understand that the first contract mentioned that you would have access to the side door as well as a petition to kind of keep the credit union separate from the rest of the entity. That was the first agreement?
No, that was just the verbal agreement,
Okay.
which, we, like I said, I was going to sign the agreement that we would leave the door closed.
Right.
The wording, though, is that basically we're watching it. In the way it's worded, I'd have to dig it out. But I had some board members that were concerned about the wording.
Okay.
The way we approached it is, I can tell my staff, you cannot open that door. To tell a member, you cannot open the door, we just don't think that that's professional.
Okay.
For whatever reason. And now the new wording is, it's our tenants, it's our member, it's the tenant, us, our staff, it's basically our invitees. I mean, and it's all the doors. So now we just feel like we're responsible for all the doors. I understand, it's just, it seems like originally it was an adjacent door, now we're being all the doors. So that's my concern. Like I said, I can tell my staff, you cannot let anybody in. But I will also say this, what if it's an ambulance that needs to get in? And we have been instructed by contract, we can't let anybody in. I mean, that is a concern of ours. And so what my wording on the new one was to take out tenants invitees and tenants contractors. Again, I can be responsible for my staff to take out all the doors and make it back the adjacent door. And then in case of an emergency, tenant and its employees has the right to permission to open the door. I mean, that seems logical, but we feel like for some reason this is becoming a point of contention that, we just want to get it opened. We want to get the credit union opened and get it marketed and get people driving there.
So if we change that language on your contract, you'd be satisfied with the contract?
Yes, myself and the board would be satisfied, yes.
You would say?
Yes.
Before you leave, let me ask you a question. Evidently, there was some talk behind the scenes here.
What is so important about this east side door, one door, to you to be coming in that?
Well, originally,
Because you're going to be walking, I think, from the police station parking lot. Is that correct?
yes, unless they're coming from City Hall or the courthouse.
Okay.
And if you're
For
coming.
employees.
Exactly. So if you're coming from City Hall or the court, and then the other thing is, one of me selling this to our board was, we're supposed to have 2 restaurants open. You can't access the inside of the building. You have to go around. And so if you go to the restaurants, you're going to have to exit and go all the way around to the main building versus entering right there by our credit union. The entrance is through the kitchen. It's through the back hallways. You got 2 restaurants fixing to get open. So, if the people upstairs start using the door to go to the restaurant and they prop the door open, I don't, want to be responsible, but I'm just saying that is just, it's a business sense there. And I'll say something else is, I've got less than 400 square feet. I've put 4 panic buttons in, and I'm steps away from the police department. It's kind of, I don't know, it's just kind of strange, how this has turned out, so.
So I think the attorney can change the wording. That's not a problem, I don't think.
Right. So, I'm reading this again, and again, I don't like doing this on the fly, but here I am doing things
Okay.
on the fly. It seems to me that the real, and correct me if I'm wrong, but other than all the doors, having said that the main contention here is tenants invitees. And I can see, and I didn't draft this language, one of my associates did. I guess I was out of the country when this was drafted. But this would be typical language we would use for purposes of what we typically think an invitee is, right? But in the commercial context, an invitee can include customers. And so I could see how that language could be overly broad for purposes of a retail establishment that has customers coming in and out. So maybe we can do something that is not quite as broad that includes customers. Because what we're trying to capture are those folks that you intentionally invite into the building for accomplishing certain actions, as opposed to coming in to do business with you. And so that's the intent. And I suppose we could try to wordsmith this in a way that would solve that problem.
So, actually Friday, I submitted a new edit to Ms. Crystal, and we'll be getting it back tomorrow. So I just wanted to make sure y'all knew we are on top of it, Crystal and I, Ms. Sabrina, but we wanted to, we did submit this Friday, and then we checked with Crystal this afternoon to be sure where we were, and we were told tomorrow we'll be able to get together. So we have actually discussed that.
You know, that's the key that we wanted to convey tonight, is that terminology. We want to make you happy. So if it's words you're uncomfortable with, and we could change the word and it still stay within the intent of what we want to do over there, that's the main focus. Work it so that we can satisfy your day. And like you said, if that, we could change those words to suit you, then we'll change those words, as long as we stay within the structure of it, what we're saying. You know, because anybody using that door, and this is a good question. It came up. Anybody, a tenant of ours, if a tenant of ours opened one of these doors for somebody, I feel that's not a violation of security, because they are tenants there, and they're allowing them to come in. So that's an authorized person in my use. That, because I think we could clarify that, because you mentioned that as a concern. Are they responsible? Well, if somebody in there and they tell somebody to come there and they open that door, is that a breach of security? I don't think so.
Typically it is, unless the person is escorted. If you open that door and you escort that person the whole time they're in that building, it's authorized. If that person accesses that building, okay, and you open the door, and then you let the person go off by themselves, that person is in that building unauthorized. So if somebody is going to open the door, the instructions need to be that that person needs to be with that person.
Well, that's what I meant.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not saying go open the door and you don't know who I said, if someone of the tenant opens the door for someone who they told come there and they go where they gotta go, then that's what I'm referring to. Not just anybody knock on the door, you go open the door and just let them go in. That's not what I'm talking about. But in their case, you know, if somebody was gonna come there and they know and they open the door and they go in and they go into credit union, I don't think it's a breach of security. I think the door is still secured because no one came in there that was not authorized. And since tenants have the right to have people to come in that they invite to their office, that should be all in line. And the reason I'm addressing it, because she mentioned it, and I wanted to make sure that we all agreed and have an understanding, although it's not, maybe not specifically worded in this contract, but they understand that the doors are locked. But if you let somebody in, you bring them to yours. You cannot let them in to go visit somebody else. You know, you can only authorize your people to come through. And
I don't think that's going to be one of the issues with you, because you ain't going to have time to watch somebody when they want to come in. They'll be coming in the big front door because we're going to have employee there on the scene. So we can make you happy with this. That'd be good. CEO can help us take care of that, and Crystal also.
Again, we happy to have y'all back downtown. Y'all started downtown and went all the way to the mall. I remember way back when I was at the post office. So I appreciate y'all being back downtown, and we're gonna do all we can to make sure y'all satisfied, because we're happy to have a bank downtown. It's way overdue.
Thank
So
you.
again, we apologize for what have happened in the past, but we're doing all we can to make sure y'all accommodated.
We
Thank you.
appreciate that.
Yes. Would you like to speak? Well, most of what I was going to say finally got covered.
But as board director I started with the Government Service Credit Union, which we started in the post office, and we all merged. But when you ask who would use that door, you got the post office coming from that side. You got the city hall coming from that side. Any federal agencies, which I'm been retired for 13 years, I don't know if anything's left down here. But you got the fire station coming from that side, right?
They come from main office, from the main door.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So, I mean, it's just, you do have people that was traveling, but we can live with not the door being open all the time.
Ain't going through there either.
Yeah, so I mean, we can
Because it's
live with that.
locked.
That's no problem.
There you
We
go.
just don't want to be held accountable for somebody walking out that door and holding it open for anybody.
There you go.
Our employees won't do it, that's fine. But we can't necessarily keep an eye. We may have one woman in that at one time, and this customer walks out, another one steps up. We can't necessarily see where she's going and what she's doing, or he doing, you know? So that's just all I had to say. Thank you.
One thing, this is just personal, because I go to credit unions right closing time, and they might close the doors, but the tellers might be working on something for 20 to 30 minutes. How's that going to work with y'all with 8 to 5? How's that going to work?
We do have access to be able to leave the building, so we could still leave the building. But it's just, again, the contingent was just the adjacent door and then turn into all the doors.
Right.
And
No,
that's
I
just
understand.
where our concern, but our tellers will be able to leave. That's not
No,
an
I'm
issue.
not talking about tellers. I'm talking about employees getting off at 5 o'clock or 4:45, coming on in there.
Oh, well, I mean, our office building down there will be 8 to 5, or 8:30 to 5, whatever we end up making it. But if they need to serve, other services, we have the main office has a drive-through and it's open till 5:30,
Yeah, okay.
and then
I
it's
was
got
just talking about-
Saturdays.
I was talking about that building though.
Yes, no.
Okay. Any other questions?
Clark, I asked Ms. Clark a question, I should have said it so we all could hear. They have a key to come in for the front, all our tenants. They don't need nobody. They come in, right? Okay. All right.
Thank y'all for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, next we're going to have a report, CEO's report for discussion.
Go a few more.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I'm making you pay for this paper. Maybe you won't.
Actually, it is mine, sir. Duly already covered. One step ahead of you. Pardon?
Thank y'all. What is this? Oh, okay.
First, I assure you that there's something that I ended up giving to you in detail on. It's more to help me go through everything that I committed to updating you on, as opposed to you having to do a whole lot of deep dive and deep study. First thing on my report that I wanted to just give you all a quick update on the execution of the 90-day plan. Take this opportunity, and it's okay, just going to sit from here. Trust everyone can see me. Let me take this opportunity to thank everyone for just giving me some room to breathe.
Mr. Stokes, use your mic for me.
I'm sorry. Thank you, sir. This voice isn't used to that direction, sir. Thank you. More often than not is, can you move the mic away from you? Thank you, sir. So as I was saying, I wanted to thank all the directors for just giving me the room that I needed to breathe to as I attempt to execute this plan, especially as it relates to meeting with all these stakeholders. Coalition building is going to be very important to the long-range things that we aspire to achieve. So as I continue to embark upon this plan in terms of the update, as with last month, the items under the stakeholder engagement program that are shown in green are folks that I've already had the blessing of meeting with. Those that are highlighted in yellow have been scheduled, and then everything else is remaining to be scheduled. Over the past 30 days since you last met, I did have to slow down the pace of meetings as I had to turn some of my attentions to the corporation's finances, which, long story short, which I'll make longer when I get into that portion of my update, very simply are not in the best of shape. But I'll expand upon that later in my report. But although the pace of engagement is slowed, I've gathered enough insights with the folks that I have met with to begin outlining and slowly but surely crafting the strategic plan that is the final aspect of the 90-day plan that I committed to you all. Okay. Any questions on the engagement, stakeholder engagement, or the overall 90-day plan? Okay. In your packet, right after the stakeholder engagement, you'll see a sheet labeled regular meetings. I do want to give you just a reminder that we're still trying to effectuate, I've learned a new word tonight, a joint meeting between City Council and the EDC for sometime in March. Still working with Mayor and City Council. I know everyone's busy and trying to find schedules can be difficult. As I mentioned last month, my hope will be to use one of Council's 2 available meetings in March when they were going to assemble anyway. But I'll certainly keep you posted on that because I know I have to, nail down you all's calendars as well. Having said that, and be that as it may, whether we have the joint meeting in March or not, the end of March will be time for my first quarterly meeting, quarterly update to City Council. And as you very well remember, I committed to giving them a brief update at the end of each quarter. And so we're coming up on that at the end of March. If we do the joint meeting, I'll use that to do my update. If we don't, then I'll just do it standalone. Okay, getting into the regular meetings. Last month, I provided a timeline to the board on the assembling and creation of board materials, just to make sure that you all got quality materials in a timely fashion. But in doing so, I think I created some confusion in terms of whether or not that timeline necessitated a change to the bylaws. It doesn't, but I never really been able to articulate that. So I want to just take a few minutes and articulate that tonight. In terms of, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. I apologize. I owed you all an update on my review of the current programs and policies and procedures. So that's the next item on the agenda under my report. The process of evaluating all of our various programs and policies and procedures, and most notably our assets, a great deal of which are based over in the press building, has been a labor of love, but a labor nonetheless. Long way to go in that process in order to provide you all feedback that will be contained in the eventual strategic plan. I can give you enough feedback now that we'll all need to embrace somewhat change, but certainly not change simply for the sake of change, and certainly not change for anything that isn't broken and doesn't require fixing, but more along the lines of just making sure overall operations are in sync with where we need to take the corporation as we move forward together as a team. So as I continue that evaluation process and conclude it hopefully next month as I start to finalize the strategic plan, I'll certainly provide you more feedback on things that I would want you all to consider and evaluate as we move forward in terms of things we do now, things we may not do now at all that we should be doing. Yes, Ms. Beverly, marketing, as well as, before you throw something at me, I haven't forgotten, as well as things that perhaps we do now, but we could maybe fine tune and improve upon. So that process continues on. Any questions? Yes, sir.
One is on this, the writing, if you want to put something on the agenda, is that? Yeah, regular meeting. It say have any member board may request an item be placed on the agenda by delivering the same in writing to the secretary of the corporation no later than 5 days prior to the date of the board meeting. Why can't we just say notify instead of writing?
You jumped ahead of me, but yes, sir, we can do that.
Okay.
Let me catch up with you if you don't
Something
mind.
that the board's going to have to decide and change the bylaws.
I just,
No, well, before, yeah, I jumped ahead, so let me catch up with you. I'm still going through the items as I outlined them. So I apologize for that confusion. Where we are now is, if you're following along with your agenda, update on press building anchor tenant, Lamar State College Port Arthur Culinary Arts Program, and the Kitchen Bistro, along with an update on our partnership with them in terms of the Industrial Trade Center. In a nutshell, Dr. Renard and we've had one meeting, our initial stakeholder meeting. We're just getting ready to have another one coming up soon, and there are some ideas that I want to bounce off of her. I'm not ready to flesh out tonight because I would be catching her off guard, as it relates to the kitchen and as it relates to tying the kitchen in a little more tightly into the culinary program, as well as entrepreneurship. So I want to be bouncing those thoughts off of her, and we'll be sitting down soon. And at that same time, her and I will talk about our partnership on the Industrial Trade Center. I've recently been provided the agreement that was signed between the corporation and the college. And I just want to sit down with her and, again, as a part of our getting to know one another, get her ideas of where things stand, where things need to go on both of these programs that we partner with them. So I guess my update is stay tuned. More to follow as her and I sit down and have further discussions on those topics.
Mr. Stokes, do we have a signed agreement between the EDC and Lamar State College on the trade center or the industrial trade center?
It is my understanding, let me double check.
We had a commitment on the agreement for the grant.
We did have an agreement. We'd have to double check if it's been signed off or not.
And I will add that to the things that I talked to Dr. Renard about. So to make sure that we stay in sync.
When were they planning on opening that?
Sir, I do not know that. It's my understanding that she's still working through that. So let me, again, add that to the things that her and I discuss in addition to the culinary program at the press building.
Okay. And the only other thing on same is last month we talked about, I think Renata went to a ribbon cutting there. Is that correct? For their opening?
Not for the industrial trade facility,
right.
but
And
yes.
I appreciate it in the future. Anytime we put $1 million into a building or anything else, or have anything to do with anything, that the board could be notified, because we like to go to these things and we like to show our face there.
Certainly no argument from me. I will take the hit from, as the new guy. I wasn't aware that what that ribbon cutting was about had anything to do with our partnerships. I imagine the the college is cutting ribbons on lots of programs all the time that may not have anything to do with us. And Renata, in her feedback to me, her post-mortem, didn't indicate that it had anything to do with this specific program. Having said that, duly noted on the things that we're partnered with.
Okay.
We receive invitations. No, that's what I'm saying. If we don't receive invitations.
Well, just let us know about it.
But I did not
Well,
receive
no,
anything.
but I'm saying the invitation, and they're letting us know if they don't send us an invitation, how we going to keep up with what's going on at Lamar? I'm just asking, Jerry.
Oh, what I'm at, okay, that's fine, but Renata went. How did she know?
Okay, but that's here with the corporation. You're talking about board members from what I've gathered.
Yeah, well, I'm
Okay,
just
well-
asking, in the future, if you hear anything, let us know.
Yeah.
Sir, I do appreciate it, and I will do that. But keep in mind that someone may be going to something as a private citizen, having nothing to do with the corporation. I take your question as though somehow I assigned her to go.
No. The thing it is this trade center, and we put $1 million into it, that should have been right to the top. And I
Duly
think,
noted. But however, if this function had nothing to do with the Trade Center, then it may not been on their list of things to invite us to it. And so I would not have any knowledge to even turn around and let the board know about it.
okay, whatever. No, the thing it is, sir, when we give money like to walk-ons or anybody else, we can go through the chamber on it and find out about it, I guess. But in this, I think Crystal would have known how important this was. Maybe
Sir,
not.
it's not the
Maybe
trades.
not.
I guess I'm confused. It's not the thing we have a partnership with them. It's not the Trade Center. That's what you brought up. So
What is it? What was it then?
I don't know. It wasn't anything that we had anything to do with. Again, you may be confusing a private citizen, which on her off hours, that's what Renata is, attending something, but that doesn't mean it's an official attendance connected with this corporation.
Okay. That's good. I'll find out and bring it back to the board. I'll find out from Renata. That's
Well,
good.
what is it that you would be bringing back to the board? As
Look,
Director
that's
Doucette
enough.
said,
That's enough. Don't
if
worry
we
about it.
don't have an invitation, how would you want me to affect you knowing about it?
I really don't know. But in the past, we all the time went and attended things
You
like
invited?
this. Yes.
But we didn't receive any invitation
Okay,
for this
that's
because it's
good.
not something we're affiliated with.
Good.
So basically, this was not an opening for the Industrial Trade Center.
No, ma'am.
Okay, so that's the reason why I wasn't invited. Because it's not.
Good.
Okay?
Okay, I'd like to get a clarification.
Yes, ma'am.
On the bistro that is going to be in the press building. Do we have any anticipated date as to when it's going to be open? Is it open?
No, ma'am, and that is a part of the conversations with Dr. Renard. To sync it up with the culinary program, which again, under her jurisdiction, but I just have some suggestions in terms of the overall entrepreneurship thought process for the building. And so, short answer, no, not yet. Let her and I sit down and come up with some ideas of how to tie these things together. Okay.
Kind of.
Got one. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, you go, Beverly.
So when are you planning on having this? Have you set up a meeting with her soon? We've been sitting on this for a while, so when are y'all planning on meeting regarding this bistro? Have you been communicating with her?
Short answer is yes. Two things. I recognize and respect how busy she is. Her and I talked at the banquet last week that you and I attended. The first thing she said to me was, hey, I do know that you've got 168 some odd folks that you're trying to meet with. She reminded me, I definitely am not going anywhere, and I know you're not going anywhere, Terry. We'll get together as soon as we can. So that's my commitment to you all. Neither her or I are losing track of this. It's not off our radar screen. We're going to have something to chat about. Yes, sir.
I just want to hear a lot of questions about, specific questions about these bistros and that building over there. I just think that the corporation runs it. And if it's on something that we are doing and the corporation is doing, I think when it's time for it to come to us, for us to either say yeah or nay, then it's time for us to make decisions. When it's come down to this operation, I don't think it's for us. I think we need to let the staff and CEO do the corporation stuff. And then when it's time for us to say yeah or nay, it'll come to us. It's not for us to initiate and do that. Because I'm listening to the questions and I'm listening to them saying, well, I haven't got with them. And, well, you know, whenever that get to that point, before it could go any farther, it has to come to us. And that is when we make decisions. Either we say yay or nay, or we say no, we're going to alter it. But we can't initiate and say, get it done, get it done, get it done. You know, we just have to kind of look at now if it's something that we all discussed before, that came before us, and it's prolonged, then yes, we should inquire on the status of it. But something that's in the works, I think, it just have to be worked out before we start getting into it, because we're talking about something, and all I'm hearing is, I got to get back with I got to get back. I got to get back. Let it come. It'll come to us.
Okay, next item, an update on the status of tasks associated with the closeout of the construction of the press building. As I've mentioned to you by way of correspondence, the building is considered 100% complete in terms of construction. The general contractor has submitted their request for final payment for phases 1 and 2. The architect in turn has approved both of those final payment requests. So those items are in process, and they're both needed in order to conclude things with the EDA, which is the next item, an update on the status of EDA grant reimbursement for the press building's construction.
On that, Mr. Stokes, we had brought to the board, it was brought to the board, brought to council, rejected that we was going to hire an attorney to close out the building, I think on our attorney's recommendation. Is that correct, Charlie?
Yes, if that was triggered and we actually needed to use them in terms of either the architect disagreeing with the general contractor or the general contractor disagreeing with the architect. Fortunately, and this is how we explained it to City Council, in fact, Crystal very well articulated it. We're hoping that we don't have to trigger that and that both parties agree. Well, as it turns out, they did and punched out everything.
So there won't be no future lawsuits or anything else. I mean, the thing it is I don't know why Charlie would have started this in the first place if we don't need an attorney.
I'll tell you why, because
Okay.
when all of this started, it was at a very different place. It was very much contentious. There were accusations on by both parties with respect to damages and all sorts of things, and it could very easily have escalated further. And honestly, but because of the delay and even getting this approved, because of what we had to go through with City Council, things progressed. Crystal did a good job of progressing things, and it de-escalated to a point where it sounds like it worked out. So when I first suggested it, it was at a different place than it is today.
Okay.
In terms of the EDA, back in November, both the financial and construction progress reports, the requisite reports were completed and brought current. Draw number 4 has been reimbursed, putting us in receipt of 90% of the EDA funding, $4,230,000. Once we receive the closeout documents from the architect and general contractor that I just alluded to, then we will submit the grant closeout documents to the EDA for the remaining 10%, or $470,000. Long-winded way of saying things are on track and moving forward. Questions?
It's just
Yes,
for
sir.
clarity's sake. All of those little crazy issues that we were having in that building are taken care of. Okay, that's all I need to hear.
And I gather it was a long time coming. One of the strange benefits of coming in late to the party is I just get to cut the ribbon. It's all gravy. I don't know what y'all were stressing about. Looks all good to me. Contractor happy, architect happy, all God's children happy. But sir, if you pushed the mic back and leaned back and said that's all you needed to hear, so we're in good shape. Thank you. And Director just said I finally have caught up with you. Review of steps involved in development of agendas for monthly meetings of the Board of Directors. Again, I call your attention to that handout, which is just an extraction of your current bylaws as it relates to regular meetings. When I put that timeline together of sending out the initial requests for suggestions and then following that up and leading up to the agenda review with Madam Secretary, Mr. President, and the attorneys when necessary, that was backtracked from the bylaws in terms of the cutoff time of 5 days. So all I did was start from there and reverse engineered. So nothing has changed in terms of when the agenda is considered frozen per the bylaws. And as the highlighted section says there, and maybe as Director Doucette noted, maybe needs to be wordsmith, but as it reads now, any member of the board may request that an item be placed on the agenda by delivering same in writing to Madam Secretary no later than 5 days prior to the date of the board meeting. I suspect that Brother Charlie would prefer that said business days, but it doesn't as of right now, so be that as it may.
Well,
go ahead, sir. Yes,
no,
sir.
my thing was in writing, and I don't think it's changing anything. If it's agreed upon that rather than writing, they could just call and have it placed on there. I mean, I don't think that's going to be done because even if you submit it in writing, you ain't going to keep it as no matter of records after that anyway. Normally when you do so, it says writing, I think it's meant just so that they can have some way of identifying that you requested this. So I guess all I'm asking, can a board member just call the secretary and say, I would like to have this added on to the agenda, as opposed to driving down here and turn in a piece of paper.
Email would constitute.
There we go.
Yeah, because I say you went too far.
Yep, or text. Good. All right, that's the whole thing, to stop them from having to have somebody drive down here and turn something in and we volunteering.
Gotcha.
It's not like nobody paying a board member for gas, so we need to
Sure.
take a look at accomplishing what is written.
Okay.
Where is it easy to all? Okay.
Okay. So just to be clear, in terms of the timeline that myself and staff use to start putting things together, it does not affect when the agenda is considered frozen, i.e. the 5 days ahead of the meeting.
Okay, one of the issues, I understand we have 5 days to turn in our agenda items, but do it give you and the staff time? And this is my main concern, because right now we can hand out this tonight. And again, it's one of my issues because I like to read the information before I get to meeting. I don't want to be
Absolutely.
going through stuff, trying to figure out what's going on at the meeting.
Yes.
So I
Neither
understand
do-
we have a 5-day agenda, but do that give your staff time to get everything together and get our package to us in a timely fashion?
No. And I didn't know you were going to do a brother like that, but no, it does not. No, you're absolutely right. And that is, but I did not want to go down, and I think you understand my mind and heart. I didn't want to go down that path because this is what you all have been doing forever. And there's only so much embracing change that I want to bring upon y'all at one time. But this is tight. And what the timeline that I put together was trying to prevent on the other end of someone, anyone asking for something to be on the agenda on this Thursday or Friday and the meeting's Monday. There's absolutely no hope that myself and staff can address that. But in an ideal world, yes, this would be backed up to 10 days out as opposed to the 5. But that ultimately is a decision for you all. I'm not asking that. I duly note, Madam Secretary, that I've got to tighten up. As long as it says 5 days, I will do everything I humanly can to do that. I understand.
But I know
you.
it's hard for you, So I was hoping that some kind of way we can come to some type of probably a modification to the bylaws to state 10 days instead of 5 days. If that's possible.
This board meets only once a month, so it ain't like it's hard to get an agenda in a timely manner. And I think what needs to happen is that he looks at a time frame in which he can put it together and then get it to the board members in a time frame that the board members have the opportunity to review. And as far as the last date, when you look at how it's written, it should be a last day for board members to turn it in, but the CEO and the president should be able to have another period there. So that should be included in there. So I think what we really need to do is get what's written and then have him to bring us a proposal and then work with the proposal with the board, and the board decide what's acceptable and what's not acceptable to the board members and stuff. So both parties agree to it.
Yeah, I don't know. I like what's written because it's worked. I think the issue that we've recently encountered is that board members are now bringing things to the agenda that is more things that employees would be doing. Because in the past, we never really brought things like that without some backup or something that we had spoken about in another meeting that we've already had backup for. So everyone knew what we were talking about. So I guess just the little difference is the type of agenda item that's being brought from the board members. So, and in the past, we've also had, this may need to be changed. In the past, if you brought something, you had to have some information to go along with it so that the board member would know what you were talking about and not be blindsided as well. So that was just a point of courtesy. It was never anything that was written in, how you bring the agenda items. But I think that's the difference, when we start doing a little more than we used to, then it makes it hard for the employees to get everything together for us. But if we do that and bring forth information or bring back something that we've already discussed, or just bring something that is really board work, I think 5 days is fine. So it's just a matter of what kind of agenda items we're bringing forward.
So basically what we need to do is be considerate of the CEO, whatever the board member brings to agenda, it should be considered what type of information we're requesting or what we place on the agenda. So it would give them time to. Right, a point of courtesy, exactly. So it's all about the board giving their courtesy to the CEO and staff regarding what they're bringing within those 5 days.
A question to the board, would there be an objection to making it 5 business days?
Like I said, it's a majority rule here, I think what we have now, we just need to decide. It might be 5 days like it is. So we all here, I think it's whatever convenience. Since
I agree with the 5 business days. Everybody agree. It's according to what the board decides.
Jerry.
Would that help?
Absolutely. I mean, if you just take it literally, okay? Literally, staff could be in here Saturday and Sunday all day long trying to put things together. And so that contradicts the courtesy aspect.
No, that's why I was asking him that question, if it would help.
How do we go about making that adjustment to our bylaws? What is the process we need to go by to do that?
Is that how we do it, Charlie, or do we have to?
Send to the city council?
On the,
It doesn't have to go to council?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yes, it does.
not until this body approves it.
Right.
So do we have to have this on as an agenda item, a special meeting, something like that? So we have to make sure that we get this on the agenda for next month. Yeah.
You're right. So it'll be on your March agenda, and then it would go to council. Thank you. That will help tremendously. And on behalf of staff, I say thank you too. Takes us to proposed procedures for engaging and interfacing with the corporation's attorneys. In your packet is our January bill from our legal team. And let me just say right up front, since I'm sitting to the left of Charlie, there's absolutely nothing wrong with the bill. The bill is perfectly fine. Okay, so I want to make that abundantly clear. But I also wanted to make sure that it was understood that Charlie and his team, for reasons that I haven't figured out yet, we're just getting to know one another, don't want to work pro bono. And when they are contacted, in fact, the way that I explained it to staff, pretty much if we so much as sneeze in their presence, the meter is on, as it should be in a capitalistic society. So nothing incorrect about what's in front of you. I just wanted to bring it to your attention. And there was, again, this is my bad. I think I introduced some confusion in that I believe that some may have thought that I was prohibiting our legal team from attending the agenda reviews, which is not the case. What was more accurate was when I knew that there was nothing whatsoever legal associated with that agenda, then having Charlie or Ms. Shana or whoever sit there, and as you can see from the top line, it's a couple of $100. Yeah, after a while, a couple of hundred here, a couple of hundred there, and it starts to be real money, even if all they did was breathe. So when I knew that perhaps there would, like I say, there was nothing on the agenda that was going to dive into legal, or my 4 decades of working with the statutes may have been able to answer the question without having to bring in legal, that is where that came from. What I did not want to have is a situation where we leaned on them at a cost for things that perhaps could be addressed in other ways or don't need to address it to them at all. So I hope that clears that up. But that finances and the fact that they don't work for free does lead me to something else that I just want to kind of clarify. A few weeks back, specifically the 18th of January, I replied to a call from President LeBeau who was kind enough to alert me that there perhaps was some potential litigation that the corporation would be involved in. And he mentioned to me that Charlie had been made aware of it, and I believe the city attorney as well. Regrettably, at that time, I did not have any knowledge of that potential litigation, so I wasn't able to contribute much to the conversation, and we didn't talk very long. I hung up and just kind of did some quick math that 3 entities perhaps knew about this potential situation, and none of them had the title CEO. Not all that big on titles, but put this together. I'm unaware of a situation. I have to pay the bill. The bill shows up, and I can identify the things that I initiated. They're going to have the name Stokes or Mueller or Michelle or Lee or Raquette on them. But as you go through that bill, you'll see a number of times where it says board staff. I've sat down with Charlie's administrative folks, and they've told us that their definition of that is one of y'all, which is all well and good, except I may not have known about it. But I have fiduciary responsibility of the organization. As it relates to potential litigation, there is beyond a financial reason that can be a potential concern. And that is a situation whereby others know about a potential litigation situation. I don't. And therefore, I have not been able to get direct advice from our legal team. So with that in mind, I have crafted for your consideration, and is in your packet, labeled Proposed Procedure for Engaging Contracted Attorneys. And I'll just go through this quickly. It's going to, I tell you right up front, it's going to require some wordsmithing. Although I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night, I'm still not Charlie, so it'll still need to be cleaned up, but hopefully it'll get the point, the main point across. On any occasion when a legal matter comes to the attention to anyone other than the corporation's chief executive officer, or upon any occasion when anyone other than the chief executive officer desires to have a legal consultation with the corporation's contracted attorneys, then said legal matter or desired legal consultation must be brought to the attention of the chief executive officer prior to engaging the corporation's contracted attorneys. Proposed procedure under Condition 1A, a legal matter, including potential litigation involving the corporation, comes to the attention of a member of the board of directors, a member of the staff of the corporation, or an associate of the city of Port Arthur, and or Condition 1B, a member of the board of directors, a member of the staff, or an associate of the city of Port Arthur desires to or wishes to have a consultation with the corporation's contracted legal team, then said member of the board of directors, a member or a member of the staff of the corporation, or an associate of the city of Port Arthur shall first notify the corporation's chief executive officer of the legal matter and or their desire to consult with the corporation's attorney. In the case of a specific legal matter, including potential documentation, the CEO must receive the documentation prior to his or her initiating the involvement of the corporation's attorneys. Fancy way of saying I must know what the heck's going on before I call Charlie. When receiving a request to have a consultation with the corporation's attorneys, the CEO will make a determination of whether he or she can address the matter or question directly himself or herself without involving the legal team. When appropriate, in either of the above referenced scenarios, the CEO will directly contact the corporation's attorneys and apprise them of the legal matter and or the desired consultation. Upon reviewing the matter, the corporation's attorneys will advise the CEO as to next steps. In the case of legal matters, including potential litigation, upon receiving advice from the corporation's attorneys, the CEO will notify the board of directors when appropriate and on the advice of the corporation's attorneys to do so. In the case of a requested simple consultation, the CEO will will advise the specific member of the Board of Directors, member of staff, or associate of the City of Port Arthur. The CEO will advise the individual of next steps per the feedback received from the corporation's attorney. I am humbly asking that you provide me feedback on that, you chew on it for the next 30 days. I will certainly work with Charlie and any wordsmithing that needs to do, any legalese that I'm missing, because I'm sure I am. But I think you get the big picture that I'm trying to accomplish here, and I will bring this back to the board for its March agenda.
Go.
Something that I mentioned to Charlie before you came on board, because I know how the attorney works, who works for us. Anybody call, you on the clock. It's not his firm. That's our guy, stayed here many years, and that's like one time when I looked at the account, like I'm looking at this one, and I saw all these calls and stuff, and I'm looking at it, I said, wait a minute, he is our legal advisor. So when there's something that requires legal advice, the CEO contacts him. And if it's if it pertains to litigation, then when the CEO gets the information from him, that's basically, I think, what he's saying here, then he brings it to us. And I'm gonna say that because when we went to the process with the previous CEO and her contract, as it stood, we end up having done everything right. But we were guided by the attorney. We didn't do anything but what the attorney advised us. So I think we just have to really understand the importance of having an attorney, but at the same time understand we don't want to call and give them no money, and especially the city. That's what I address. If the CEO doesn't okay the transmission, then whoever called, if he want to attain it, let them pay for it. Because he works for this corporation, and he is the one that says yes or no. That means we're going to pay for it. But nobody else should contact our attorney and then our attorney charging us without understanding that. And when it comes to legal advice, then the person getting is the CEO, unless we're in a meeting like now in which we can also ask for his advice or guidance on something. But other than that, on a daily routine operation, that's the CEO should be determining if we should go on the clock or not. Like he said, he don't have a problem with the bill. I have a problem with the bill when you look at it, because some of the calls we shouldn't have had. I'm just saying straight out. And we need to control that.
Oh, go ahead.
I agree with the sentiment of controlling the cost. I don't know about the writing of the document necessarily. We've always functioned as if, of course, the attorney was here to help direct the board and to keep us from doing things that we should not do. And yeah, that's how we use them. But I do agree with Mr. Stokes. If it's going to happen, I don't even know if it needs to be a policy, but out of respect, out of the fact that we're spending a pretty decent amount of money on a CEO to do some things, we should probably run things, through him first. I've learned in the past that having the attorney's phone number is a blessing and a curse. Them having your phone number is the same thing. And at the end of the day, 95% of everything that we've called about had we just sat down and talked about it, we never would have got charged for it. And so if we think about it that way, because I don't like calling the attorney and the attorney agrees with what I've said, then I didn't need to call him. You know, he needs to be telling me something different, that I'm wrong, that you need to check this or something like that. So only when things are in question. So yeah, we need to be mindful, definitely, of how we contact the attorney. Yes, we need to be respectful to our CEO and make sure that we communicate with him prior to, I would suggest, even contacting the attorney. But there will be times where you do need to call the attorney. And it may not necessarily be something you talk to the CEO about. You just never know what's going to go on. Those times will come, but we need to use our better judgment. So I'm not saying that I disagree with this. I just don't know if this needs to be a policy or procedure that's put in place. I just think that we just need to do better as individuals who, to handle the business more properly, because at the end of the day, we're supposed to be protecting and handling the taxpayers' money effectively. So in we thinking about those things, you wouldn't just wake up in the morning and say, "Oh, let me call Charlie and see what he's having for breakfast," and it costs you $50 to find out.
For the record, if they just called me and asked me what was happening,
I'm just
you never
kidding.
would see that on the business.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But I'm just saying, if some of those things need to be considered. I think that's really.
No, I agree, but I think it needs to be in black and white, because if something did arise and they have different board members, they should know. See, we all agreeing on this now, but the whole thing we should be doing is establishing policies and procedures for the corporations, and therefore it's not geared toward individuals. We all agree with it if we all were talking, but other board members come up. If it's not written anywhere, they'll have to go through how we want to do it, or they may question why you did this or why you did that. I know that if we have it in there, it'd be just like with the incident with the one CEO where there's a lot of things going on, but everybody kept hollering, there's nothing written, how to deal with that. So I think in situations like this, when things come up and we talk about it, we need to really understand what we want and the intent of it and put it in a policy so that people following us have the opportunity to see how you operate. And if they choose to make it better, at least they got something to work from with amending and changing.
Let me say, I do agree with what you're saying as far as the policy, but maybe this just isn't the way it needs to be written, based on what I've read. Maybe that's what it is, because the way I read this, it's not something I would agree with.
Well,
so I'm guessing. I understand what he's saying. I understand what the purpose is, but maybe the way it's worded, it's just not, where it is.
Yeah, but any board members that have anything to do, when he put it out, all we do is read it, and that's what it's for. And you send in your input, because the input is supposed to be something that's got to come back and be discussed before the final document. So maybe the intent is read it and then provide your feedback on it. So when it comes back, it's got the feedback incorporated in it. So if you got any questions, it could be changed. And like you said, with the words have to be words swift.
Really?
So just read
President, could I, and
Sure.
board, duly noted. How about this? Let me get with the legal team, because they have not had a chance in any way, shape, or form to clean this up. Get an update to you post haste and start from there. Let's consider tonight an introduction of the concept. And it sounds to me like you're in agreement on the concept. And then we'll let Charlie and team work with me get another version to you, and then we'll go from there as we move towards March. Would that be okay, sir?
I also think, kind of agreeing with what Mr. Deuce said, that's good what you're going to do as well. Let us also put input and from the board members. And then we can put it all together and y'all can come up with a packet that way.
Right.
You know, I can, so this is, you know, I can get with Mr. Stokes and we can have a discussion about this. Our law firm, obviously, all we do is represent local governmental entities. We're cognizant of where the dollars come from to pay us. So we try to be diligent in how we take phone calls, when we take phone calls. I can assure you, you know, I'm sure it was, I'm positive it's all said in jest, but even things said in jest can be taken out of context when things are recorded. I don't bill you if I'm breathing, all right? There are multiple phone calls I've taken, multiple emails I've seen that are not on this bill. I don't bill you for every email I read. I don't bill you for every conversation I have. I make a judgment call on the value associated with that conversation, whether it be by telephone, whether it be after a meeting, an email that I read. I don't bill you for everything. I think that I would like to have a little bit of confidence in this board who hired me to be legal counsel, to have some ability to make judgment calls as my own. The way this is written, the gatekeeper for your legal services is your CO. I don't work for your CO. No offense. You don't hire me. You don't pay me. I don't work for you. I work for this board. I get the concept that we want to limit how people call me. I totally get that. But the document that I just heard read is basically the only person I can talk to is this man. And no disrespect, I'm sure you're wonderful. We've just met and we're going to have a great relationship. But that is not a good way for me to try to provide legal services to the body, and the entity, which I represent. I don't just represent the body, I represent the entire entity. And so I'm very comfortable coming up with a policy that says, hey, here are the circumstances and who can call the lawyer and how. I can tell you, I'm sure it won't happen with Mr. Stokes, but there have been multiple. I've been doing this for 22 years. And if I had $1 for every time a board member had a problem with an employee or any employee, whether it's the high-level employee or the low-level employee, and a board member had an issue or question that they needed to know how to deal with, and it had gone through the CEO, and the way this says everything has to go through the CEO, it would not have worked out well. So I think that you need to be allowed to have some discretion. I think I need to be allowed to have some discretion and show you that I'm not, I'm happy to put on the bill every time someone calls me that I don't bill you and put it as a no charge. I don't do that, but I'm happy to do it. So you can see how many emails and phone calls I take that are not charged on this bill. And then I didn't have a chance to put it in, but on the agenda, I would prefer to have the opportunity to sit through those agenda conferences. And the reason for that is because it keeps me in the loop on all the things that are going on with respect to this entity, so that the perfect example tonight, this issue with this thing, with respect to the lease agreement, during the agenda review, I would have said, "What's this public comment from the credit union?" And I would have been told, "This is
on there."
Well, someone could have called me and told me that it was on there and told me what was coming up.
You didn't know either.
It all hit us.
Okay, all right. So maybe that's a bad example.
That's okay.
But my point is what these agenda conferences, and I do it with almost every client. Sit through an agenda conference so that I know what's on the agenda, so that I can make sure that what's on the agenda can be accomplished. It's more than just, oh, there's not a legal issue, but maybe there's something that needs to be accomplished and it needs to be drafted in a way that is not drafted in the way that it's drafted in order to get it accomplished. That's my preference. I prefer to sit in the agenda conferences. I do it with without fail with all of my clients. This isn't unique that I've requested that I do it with y'all. It just helps me provide legal advice. Now, if y'all don't think it's worth the money and time and effort for me to sit through those agenda conferences, fine, I'll step back and I won't sit through them. But I tell you, it helps me provide legal. It's not, even if I don't say a word, listening to that so I know what's going on, the business of this body, so that I know what's going on, helps me provide legal advice on the issues that are going on. So that's my preference.
Charlie,
Once we start the agenda, we really don't know what depth it's going to be into, and that was the reason, and I wanted an attorney there. We don't want to have to look for you or anything like that and can't find you, and, you know,
I don't know if the previous attorney sat in agenda conferences or not.
always.
Okay.
Always.
Well, I do it for all of my clients where I'm going to the meetings, and I do it because it helps me, and I'm doing pretty much the day-to-day business, because it helps keep me in the loop with respect to what's going on. It helps me spot issues. It helps me understand what's happening. It helps me make sure things are drafted in a way on the agenda in a way that makes it ensure that it's going to be accomplished appropriately. I mean, it's just, I find value in it. If y'all decide, and if you decide there's no value in me sitting in those, then I won't. I'm happy to not do it. I'm just telling you, in my 22 years experience, it has brought value to my clients.
No, personally, I want you there. And I think, nothing against the CEO, I think he just went to the extreme with this contract instead of reprimanding me and going about business. And that's it. And that's how I would like to just see it. I don't care, just like for rules that we would have to have a new contract or whatever, like Anderson said, just go about our way. And
Well, I'm fully, I mean, if there's going to be a policy, it should be written 100% so that everybody knows what the policy is. And that's completely okay with me. I just need to know what the policy is. What I'm not a fan of is what I heard, which it creates problems for me ethically because I don't represent.
That's why things are called drafts. I would just ask the board to, excuse me, sir, just to go back to the original point and to use your words, Charlie, kept in the loop. However we get there, the issue is you and your team are all working diligently to provide great legal work for us. Other people happen to know what the subject matter is, and I don't.
Okay. The lawsuit. Yeah. No, I understand.
Pick any topic.
Yeah.
Well,
right.
You know, that's the part that's I kind of get irked about, because I'm listening, and a lot of times when we listen, you know, we can see all of the points and all good points, and what everybody say, we can all understand. I hear something that we need to include him in the agenda review. Well, all it needs to be is said. You know, it don't have to come out like it's somebody keeping it out. We need to speak as a board. The other thing is, the attorney now understands we're not going to pay for anybody calling any time, so he understands he's going to come up with a policy. But also, everybody needs to understand the intent is the CEO is responsible for the daily operations of this corporation. And when we as board members have something dealing with the corporation that we can't first talk to the CEO, and we talk about respect, we as board members, we his boss. You know, if we say, hey, we want to talk to the attorney, we talk to the attorney. But there's a certain way that we should operate. If we're going to hold them responsible for the corporation, then we also to ensure that he is aware of what's happening dealing with the corporation. That's just common courtesy.
Yeah.
That's just common courtesy. We cannot do things without going through the CEO, but we holding the CEO accountable. Let's just make sure we can work this and keep things in perspective.
So that's 100% valid comments. And of course, I'll do my best to keep you in the loop and everything. And I'll just state publicly with respect to the lawsuit, the only reason I didn't call you is because we weren't involved in a lawsuit. Turns out, the city attorney got in contact with me and showed, and turns out we weren't sued. The city was sued. And so I apologize. I probably should have called you and told you that was going on. But once I found out that we weren't involved in a lawsuit, I figured it wasn't necessary to call you and tell you we weren't involved in a lawsuit. So I apologize.
No harm, no foul. What I want to say to my board is, which is up in my shoes. I didn't hear it from Charlie.
Yeah.
Heard it from one of y'all. So I do not know, and I am responsible. So now I am having to, okay, I've got to go figure this out. And yes, we would have come to the eventual same conclusion. Got it. But you can eliminate all that if I'm the one that is initiating the phone call, even in let's say it just happened to get to you before. At some point, you should expect, well, I haven't heard from Mr. Stokes. Whoa, wait a second now, hold on. Even if this thing is going to be squelched, it's been 3, 4, 5 days. Let me just contact him. That's all that I would ask. And that's all the intent of this ill-drafted document is about. So I'll get with Charlie, we'll clean this up, get to something that we can all live with, and I'll bring it back to you. Any other questions on that? Yes, no? Okay. Moving on to the corporation's finances, and I know it's getting long in the tooth, so I'm going to talk fast here because I did make that promise to Charlie that we wouldn't be here all night, and I'm going against my promise. Folks, in a nutshell, the finances aren't good. That's no one's fault. It's can't turn back a clock. It's none of that. This is not about pink finger pointing. It's my job to bring to the board reality. To a certain extent, I can't do that tonight because part of the mess is our reporting structure. Myself and our financial officer had a good meeting with the treasurer the other day in advance of expanding that to a conversation to her committee and then eventually the full board. Without recounting all of that, because that was over 90 minutes of conversation, in a nutshell, we are under duress financially. It has a great deal to do with us getting our arms around the press building. The press building was over-designed, overbuilt, and over-accessorized. That's not my economic development hat telling you that. That's my civil engineering hat telling you that. Nothing we can do about any of that at this point in time. I did include in your packet, just as they would say in the legal game, Exhibit A, the last Entergy bill, just as a for instance. Some $20,000 for a building with 3 tenants. Now, at first blush, human nature would be, well, we got to fix that. Let's put some energy efficient this and staff will handle that. That's down in the 1-inch level. We'll take care of that. The bigger picture is the building bleeds money. And I and staff, most specifically Crystal, our financial officer, Rachel, we're getting our arms around it. But right now, as we sit here tonight, we can't even give you a full picture of all the assets in the building. We're close to wrapping that up, and we'll certainly have it for you over the next 30 days, but as we sit here tonight, I don't. If I can't give you a listing of the full assets, I can't attach a dollar value to them. What I do know is that it is sucking the very life out of our finances. We'll get a handle on it, make no doubt about it, because that's what my commitment is to you. But I need you for now to understand that's where we stand. Things are tight.
Oh, one question regarding this utility bill. Why is it being paid late? 'Cause I'm looking at all these, I'm looking at $1,000 worth of late payment charges.
Yes, ma'am. That's a long conversation over the next few weeks and days, and that has something to do with what we talked with Madam Treasurer about. Here is a nutshell. We outsource our accounts payable as well as our purchasing. And Madam Secretary, who we outsource to is not geared to or designed to take care of what this corporation is charged to do. So therefore, at no fault of our vendor, we're just out of step. And the solution is to get another vendor. And that's going to be us. I will eventually be bringing to you permission to bring accounts payable and purchasing in-house. The old saying goes, we can do bad by ourselves. Well, I can also do great things by myself too. But when I'm relying on another vendor who's structured differently, and yet this corporation's credit rating is in the dumper right now. This corporation, this staff has to deal with collection agencies calling. Last week, I nearly had some furniture repossessed. And I, as your CEO, as long as I'm your CEO, until you dismiss me as your CEO, I'm not going to have that on my watch. I didn't come here to be fiduciarily sloppy. I'm not blaming anybody. I don't care about history. All I can affect is the future. And we financially are not where we should be. We'll get there, but it's not going to be overnight because the press building is a living, breathing thing.
I don't know why it's a big deal, okay? For one, when you start during the incubators, when you start having people to have jump starts, when you take up room in the building that's supposed to be leased and you're not receiving funds for it, then you're paying for it. So if you're looking for the press building to be making money, I knew that from the beginning, it's going to have to be relooked at, okay? The other thing is, if you're counting on X amount of tenants in there and you don't have them, it's like having an apartment building. You're not going to make money until you fill it up. So that should be expected. You're not going to make money. But for this corporation to have to pay late fees for money is unacceptable. CEO, this is not nothing you're going to come to. No, you come to this board with a recommendation to fix this problem and let the board do it. And when we're talking about vendors, we don't talk about vendors. The city pays late fees. The city, people don't want to pay them because they pay late. Contractors, everything. This corporation shouldn't be that way. They are the custodian of our account, but we should be managing the account. And if we have to pay late fees because of their inability to do it, now it's time to say, okay, either we do our accounts so we could pay on time. Or if you think it's best that we leave it, then if you don't pay it, you just charge us what we being invoiced for, but you pay the late fees because the money is present. And you talking about our credit? No. You know, we got to work with the city. You know, it's important. But these things here have to be brought to the attention of the council or the manager. I'm quite sure the council wouldn't accept us getting a bad credit rating because the finance department is not paying our bills and the money is there. So we just have to understand, we have to elevate it to the people over there. So the CEO, your counterpart is a city manager. When you talk with the city manager, if he can't fix the finance, you come back to the board, you should be going to the council and let the council know that we are getting a bad credit rating or we are not getting bills paid because you all not paying it, but our money is all there to pay you. I've never heard of anything that is so unbelievable to say. How much was one of those late fees?
741 was one of them, another was 464.
$741.78. Talk with the city manager, because I tell you right now, for that much money, this time somebody start looking at reimbursement, and it's not that, but we just can't do that. We can't, that's almost $800. We can't do that.
Honorable Board, great point. As it turns out, myself and city manager, as well as his two top assistants, have had the conversation. They are fully supportive of us bringing things in-house. Won't be done overnight. I'm putting together a high-level timeline, as I promised the Madam Treasurer that we would do. And I will keep you posted, because it ultimately has to have your approval. But at a high level, the goal is to go live on October 1st of this year. We're backing in a timeline. Over the summer, we will run in parallel. We'll be beta here, live there, so that you all so for a few months, you're going to get two reports. One of what it should be if we were paying everything on time, and one of the reality. And then with the goal of, like I say, midnight, September 30th, October 1st, new fiscal year, to go live. And so I just want you to know that those conversations have been had. And frankly, that's easier for me to manage on your behalf and the corporation's behalf than trying to affect change there. Because they've got a large operation, and we're just no matter how you want to put it, we're a customer. We can, yell to the rafters, but at the end of the day, we're a customer. And if for whatever reason the structure isn't appropriate for us, then we have alternatives, and those alternatives have been broached with the city manager and the two assistant city managers. So I wanted to broach it with you all so that you just be aware of what we're working on internally. Yes, sir.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
At what point do you think you'll be able to bring us a full financial report? It's been a while since we've had one in hand.
Okay.
And you don't have to go into details. I just
No,
need
sir.
to kind of give me an idea of when we will.
And I humbly ask for patience. The goal was to have one for you tonight. Until our financial officer called over to get some final numbers, only to find out that the previous fiscal year hasn't been closed out. I can't, stop, sir, please. Don't. I knew you had a delayed reaction there because you just heard what I said. I can't provide you if upstream is still in September. Nothing I can do about that. What I can do with your eventual blessing is bring it in-house. We pay our bills, we write our checks, we build our credit rating back. So, Mr. Vice President, I hope I answered your question.
Okay,
Madam Treasurer.
as a point of clarification, everybody on this board knows that we have been struggling, I know since I've gotten here, to get adequate numbers. Basically, where we are in terms of our finances, what our fund balance was, where we are with the press building. I need everybody to understand that, yes, we knew the press building wasn't going to be a moneymaker. We did not know that inflation was going to be as high as it is. That's one thing we did not know. So our expenses are a lot higher than we thought they were going to be. The other thing that we weren't aware of is when they escalated the second phase of the construction of that building, okay, that consumed a lot of our reserve, okay, in order to be able to pay for that. But we had to get through the building. We had to get to a finishing point. And so now that we've gotten to the finishing point and we've completed that, we'll have an idea of basically where our deficits are. But we're not going to get a clear picture until we get our own financial software and we structure those reports so that we know what our numbers are. Okay?
It's a long time, though.
Okay, but in the meantime, okay, we're just going to have to watch our finances.
That's correct.
Okay, we're going to have to keep an eye on every dollar we're spending. Okay?
Thank you, Madam Treasurer. And just to add, Mr. Vice President, we're going to give the board the most complete information within our disposal. I just need the board to fully understand that some things aren't in our control. And like the old saying goes, you can't fight City Hall. We can control what we can control, and that is beginning the process, which I have begun, of bringing purchasing and accounts payable in-house.
Last question.
Yes,
So,
sir.
I stand corrected. There is a financial statement in there. It was at the very bottom down there. How is this pretty accurate or what?
No, see, I knew the report was in there, and I didn't even bother to reference it, not because Ms. Rachel didn't do a great job. It's that the old saying in computers, data, junk in is junk out. It is incomplete. So I would not want this body to be making any fiduciary decisions based on that data. Like I say, I know Director Doucette doesn't want me to use the word vendor. Our supplier, whatever you want to use, is trying to close out the previous fiscal year. Your CEO is trying to get ready for March. See the gap? I don't know of any other way to lay it out. No one's fault, no one's problem. They're doing what they need to do to run their corporation. Questions before I move on to workforce?
Move quickly. It's 8 o'clock.
It's probably good advice, but workforce. Very quickly, there is a report on the current Texas view of high demand positions. I'm going to say this very briefly, and then I'll provide you a detailed update in email because we are getting late, and I apologize for this running long. In a nutshell, I know that CNA and CDL continue to be near and dear to you all's hearts until you tell me otherwise. And that's how I'm going to keep thinking. Conversely, both of those programs have now fallen to the low end of what Texas views as high demand. And it is the workforce folks that I'm going to be counting on to provide funding to supplement the programs that we have going on, because I'm going to have to seek funding to keep those programs going, because in case you hadn't heard, we're kind of tight. So I have to balance with continuing on what's near and dear to our hearts with what they want to see funded. And I'm working on that, but I don't want anyone to think that programs are going away. We may alter how many folks we put through at any particular time to lessen the cash crunch. But we also might invest in some other programs that are high demand. I will have that portfolio for you as we go forward. But I did want to just briefly touch upon that. Yes, ma'am.
Quickly, 'cause I hear you say dear to our hearts. These are demands as well. CDL, CNA are demands here for our area. And even though state of Texas say one thing, in our area, these are programs that is needed for the elderly and people that is need of and CDL license because of the growth that we are sustaining here in this area. So saying that, I see the CNA program has 20 recipients, and CDL is not coming up to March, right?
Right.
Okay, the CNAs is active as of now.
That's correct.
Okay, how many students do we have? I understand we approved for 20, but how many do we have?
Let me get that from Dr. Stafford. At last I heard there were 10 enrolled, but I need to double check that. And you are correct in terms of the focus. The report I gave you is for the Golden Triangle. It is not involving the rest of Texas. But be that as it may, I wanted to, number one, I understand the significance of the programs. Number two, I have to balance some things, and I'll have those conversations with you. Okay? Any other questions on workforce? Okay, next item, the Jade Avenue Industrial Park. Directors, very clearly and very succinctly, I owe you the humblest of apologies, because last month even with Ms. Crystal trying to throw things at me to get my attention, I misspoke allegedly that you could not lease any land on Jade Avenue, which is absolutely not the case. Your covenants allow you to do that to your heart's content. So I apologize for that confusion. That is completely on me. Having said that, there are things you can do and things you ought to do. This past week, I was at a site selector conference, sitting down with some old colleagues one night at dinner. I laid out Jade Avenue to them just to get their feedback. Always, no matter how much I know of site selection, as a proud member of the Site Selector Guild, doesn't mean I can't get some feedback from counterparts. To a person, they happen to say what I already had in mind, and for all of you, you just heard on a podcast, having the site shovel ready makes it the most competitive in terms of attracting an eventual long-term tenant. So in terms of my conceptual strategy, I will still continue to develop along those lines. And specifically, I will bring to you a concept of seeking EDA funding to assist us in putting the infrastructure in that site to make it shovel ready as fast as humanly possible so that we can market it and attract long-term tenant. That said, I correct myself from last month. You are free to do what you want, but I'm still answering a question that was posed to me last month by then Director, now Treasurer Clark. I'll paraphrase, regardless of lease, no lease, Mr. Stokes, what would you do and what would affect your strategy? Well, that's what I'm articulating it. Get the site shovel ready with the assistance of the EDA, get it marketed and move forward. Questions? Okay. Real quickly, we've talked a little bit about bylaws and certainly the creation of the marketing communications committee has to be inserted in the bylaws. So And with your blessing, I think, and the bylaws were updated last April, so we're coming up on a year, new CEO, probably a good time with the fact that we've already agreed that we've got some new verbiage with the new committee, just to take a high-level overview. Would be certainly the first time that myself and Charlie and his team have had a chance to do that. There may not be anything that gets changed other than the insertion of the new committee, but you don't know that until you kind of dive into things. So I just wanted to let you know that we'll be undertaking that. And last but not least, security, both here as well as at the press building. You have a quote as the last document in your package from our current vendor that provides security out at the industrial parks. We asked them to provide us a quote for providing security on the nights that this body meets, both regular meetings as well as any specially called meetings, so obviously someone would be on call, as well as providing security during working hours at the press building. You have that number. Ms. Crystal, could you remind me what the round number was, please? Thank you.
I apologize. I had that written down, and I don't know it off the top of my head. I was literally about to do the math. So it falls between 40 and 60,000 roughly once you do the math on it.
Thank you.
Per year. That is an annual cost.
And so what I'd like to suggest is that to give the board peace of mind, that we kind of parse out providing the security for when you meet in special meetings, and then revisit ramping up the security at the press building as we start to see more tenants start to be attracted to the facility. And by the way, just a quick note, in terms of going back to the credit union, one of the reasons they don't have their keys yet is that they're not official tenants. So, we'll fix that, make sure that they have a key while they're trying to get themselves set up, but they just didn't have a code or anything to get in. So going back to security, I think you probably are still interested in having it ramped up. We have done a survey of all the folks here. Everyone feels comfortable, especially with the onset of new lighting. All of our current tenants, plus the folks on the first floor, feel comfortable. So we're not seeing the need to ramp it up day to day here. Want to give you all peace of mind, so on the nights you meet, and then let's have the conversation about press building as we go into the budgetary cycle later in the spring, if that's okay with you all.
So what you're saying is possibly 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. over there, 5 days a week?
Yes, sir.
But he said later on.
Later on.
You're right.
Have y'all checked with like the police officers off duty to see if their rate would be like this?
Like 30-some,
Oh,
$40 an hour would do it.
Okay,
Yeah.
forget that then.
Well-
Okay.
My take on security, I see security, I go a lot of places, but they ain't armed. Okay? So if a person not armed, what are they doing? Checking to ensure that the person coming in is authorized? So if you're talking $60,000, because a person is a security person, okay, as opposed to you hiring somebody to work that desk for way less than that. Because, some of these security places and stuff is really somebody there because they don't have weapons. So if they don't have weapons, in the event something happened, what are their response? Basically, their response is going to be basically what your employee can do that sits there and check people. So all I'm saying is, I'm not saying we can't have a security company, but what I'm saying, whatever a security company going to entail what they doing actions they're taking, take a look at if you hired somebody to do that. It'd be cheaper.
Armed.
It'd be cheaper than the company. You know, so I think if you're gonna pay that difference, you need to make sure that it's something that's gonna have an impact on having the other two before you stop. Because, you know, City Hall used to had this security person, and I see this she's in there, says sign the paper, sign your name. They call up there and say, hey, somebody down here, they come get them. Do you need license? So just take a look at that before we get off into hiring a security company. That's all I have to say about it.
We used to have someone at the front desk, and if there's any way possible we can have hire someone to sit at the front desk. I don't see that anymore. I haven't been here in a while. It may have changed, but I know in the past we have had somebody in the front desk.
In this building?
In this building. I'm sorry, in this building.
Now, more often than not, Caleb is at the front desk. The only times he's not there is when we have him off doing facilities duties. So what we can look at is supplementing that for this particular facility. Same thing at the press building. We can take a look at supplementing what we already have in place, which again would probably go a long way to fitting into what our budget would be. Okay. And with that, Mr. President, I thank you, and I yield the floor back to you.
Okay, thank you. Next is unfinished business, which we have none. Next one's consent agenda items for review and discuss the possible action regarding the closeout of Phase 1 and Phase 2 of the construction renovation project at 549 4th Street and the release of the retainage for South Tex construction.
So move.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Your lights on? Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Against? Motion carried. Okay, next one is review, non-consent, review, discussion, and possible action regarding the items and condition of an economic incentive and entering into a performance agreement with Saigon Plaza LLC. Can I get a motion? Second. Got a motion and second. Any to move? Can we have a discussion? Any discussion? Crystal, was you going to say something?
Sir, I was just going to give you all a brief summary over this one. Saigon Plaza approached us a couple of months ago with their letter of intent in Phase 1 application. The board did instruct us to move forward with verifying all of the work, and our consulting engineer did come back with his recommendation as to the infrastructure work for the project. So if you all do move forward with this, 40% of that infrastructure work would amount to $270,149. If you all would like to move forward with this performance agreement, we would ask our attorneys to go ahead and help us prepare an agreement. I'm using performance agreement because it is a back-ended agreement, so they won't receive any funds until they've actually performed, which these historically have been broken up into 3 different milestones. They receive their first payment after infrastructure is complete, and then the second 2 payments once they have certificates of occupancy. Well, we'll probably bring back how we're going to structure that agreement at your next meeting. But at this point, they could still receive payments in 3 different parts.
I have a question about this. Okay. You got to review and discuss and possible actions, right? Okay. You haven't done an agreement, right?
No.
Okay, then. We already had all this when we gave you the go-ahead, right?
No, sir. The first time around was just their letter of intent. This is now the findings of our consulting engineer and the numbers.
Okay, so we get the numbers. All right, so it's gonna come back now and think, so what do we want here? We're just gonna approve you now going forward with the contract?
Right. This is just
Okay,
to
then.
approve the terms. Well, not necessarily the terms and conditions. We might have worded that wrong because we don't have an agreement in front of you. But we will be preparing those terms.
Okay, because, I guess that's why I'm confused with this. Okay, if we say the intent, okay, and then you all get it all together, right? And then it comes back to us, shouldn't it be in a form of the numbers and the contract, and then we say yes or no?
Historically, we've done it in 3 parts because if you guys did not like this number, we might have already spent time preparing an agreement when it can change. So we usually come before you to ask you if this is sufficient, if you want to move forward.
Okay, I understand. Understand. Good. That's a good way. Gotcha. You ready to vote, Jerry?
For some reason, my brain is not really working well tonight. I apologize. Infrastructure agreements, we get nothing. There's nothing attached to that but them doing the work, right? Okay, just thank you. I don't know why.
And Crystal, infrastructure, when they're the biggest part of that is demolition of their parking lot or concrete, and that goes towards infrastructure. We can pay for that?
Yes.
Okay. That's a big chunk. Anything else?
Demolition of infrastructure? But I mean, if you're gonna do the parking lot, I mean that they have an existing parking lot. So when you do the infrastructure, so we actually pay to get it.
Right. What is actually there right now is not usable. So there are some demo that has to be done to.
Okay, that's different. That's different. I heard you say parking lot. That's why. Okay, you don't have one. Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
So is this a recommendation that we move forward with this one from?
Short answer is yes, if you like the numbers that are before you. And Mr. Vice President, one of the questions that you asked is a part of the evaluation I'm doing of the current application process, because it might be able to tighten it up to where things are a little bit clearer and maybe condense 3 steps into 2, but we'll cross that bridge
Yes.
later. I think that may be
This way.
inserting some confusion that maybe we could eliminate, but we'll cross that bridge later.
Yeah. For real.
All in favor? Aye. Against? Motion passed. Next one is a review, discuss, and possible action regarding the appointment of a member to the Budget, Finance, and Audit Committee. Can I get a motion?
So,
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any questions? No questions, huh?
Okay, a little bit of clarification. Okay, as that committee consists of right now, it's only myself and Mr. Doucette. And I had some conversation with Mr. Getwood, and he is in agreement with us, including him, to this committee.
I would recommend that we hold up on the 2 committees until May, because your board might change. And then you'll just be going back and do it again. So you probably have to see.
I would agree with that, only if there's not work that needs to be done in between now and then. Are there going to be some meetings that need to take place with these committees before we get to May?
Oh, gosh, yes. I thought you were going to say tomorrow.
Yeah, with respect to
I
that.
can probably
Mr.
give them a break tomorrow,
Hey,
but
you know how I am. I don't believe in holding up business.
Yeah, with respect to that, that's, yeah.
You know how I am. We don't hold up business. We don't hold up business. Good point. Right. Okay. That's your motion. I'm gonna second it.
I move that we add Mr. Melvin Getwood to the Budget and Finance Audit Committee.
I second.
All in favor? Against? Motion carried. Next, review, discuss, and possible action regarding the appointment of a member to the Scholarship Committee. Can I get a motion? And a second? Second. Have a motion and a second. Any questions or thoughts?
Who's on that committee now? Is that me?
you may have just discussed a more likely
Yeah,
addition.
that one we can actually, if it's the will of the board, we can actually do this with two. We're just reviewing scholarships. It's not anything difficult to do.
We don't have to do that to it. Okay.
To vote on it?
No, I make a motion that we remove the item from the agenda.
Okay, removed. All in favor? Against? Motion removed. The next item, review, discuss, and possible action regarding the proposed 10 strategic properties that will serve and foundation of the Port Arthur EDC high-level strategic plan.
Sir President, it is any way possible, due to time, that we can move this particular item to our next month meeting? I'm asking, President.
This, hey, what it is just the 10 items he has here as part of the strategic plan. Either we approve them or we don't approve them, or we amend them, or we take some off or add some on. But all he's doing is presenting a 10 strategic plan. Those 10 things, it doesn't incorporate what each is. It says that's the plan. So you got.
I will just reiterate, as I mentioned to you last month when I presented these are an extraction of what I thought I heard in my one-on-one initial meetings with you all. If I heard incorrectly, please let me know, because there's no reason for me to write pages and pages of strategy for something you don't want to proceed on as a corporation.
Let's go.
Just think, well,
It's on the floor. It's on the floor for discussion,
Well,
so.
it is on the floor, but it is some items I would like to discuss, and due to time, I'd rather not take up the time at this time, because we do have executive sessions 8:30, and I know we usually don't stay this long for meetings, but I'm just requesting. You don't have to be done today.
that's fine. Request to move or table to next month. All in favor?
Oh, let's just remove it, and then he could bring it back next, as an item. It's better to remove, because if you say table, it's gonna come back in the same form. So, I'll make a motion that we remove that item also from the agenda.
Okay, all in favor?
All right.
Against? Motion carried. Review, discuss the decision and possible action regarding an economic incentive with Spindletop Concrete Incorporated. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second? Got a motion, second, to bring it to the floor. Any discussions or questions?
Directors, I want to bring up to date on certainly the chief proprietor of this particular corporation needs no introduction to you all. Just needed an introduction to me because I'm the Johnny-come-lately that did not know the individual. In early January, we had a long visit. Was able to share his vision for the corporation. I'm just gonna pass these. In case you haven't had a chance to actually walk those grounds, week before last, I was fortunate to have that opportunity. It was kind of a mixed blessing. It was a day where the weather was bad, so the facility's operation was down. So that was the downside. The good side was that I was not in anybody's way as I walked the grounds. Certainly a state-of-the-art facility, manned by a control center, which is the very last slide that you'll have there, all computer controlled. In terms of the mixing of the chemicals, so forth and so on. The intent, if this board were to move forward, their intent is to use funding for growth, continued build out of their site, continued employment in addition to financial growth. The actual applications. Here for your review. And
I like that.
Since you did put this under your executive session, you have certainly the right and will to take this into closed session.
Executive session? Why is it confidential?
Just stuff to read.
Corporation. The corporation's consultant in terms of evaluating financial stability, as well as the company's overall application.
Mr. President, I request that we move this to executive session because we don't have time to really, it's confidentiality and probably some items that we don't need to discuss on live TV, so I request that we move it to executive session.
What are we going to be discussing?
I don't think it is.
Well, it is
Because
near.
An economic development incentive?
yeah, we only discuss
Okay, all right,
the
yeah.
plan,
So,
but when you
it-
actually go in there, we talk about incentives. in closed
yeah,
door.
if we're talking about the incentives, we can talk about it in closed session.
Closed door, not what
Oh,
he's saying,
it's
talking
actually
about
in there already, you didn't even know, yeah.
you don't talk about the incentive going to open.
We're going to move item 6 or 5, that is, review Spindletop Concrete into executive session. All in favor? Against? Motion
It's already
carried.
in there, Judge.
It's already there.
It's
Already
already
there.
there.
Oh,
It's already in
okay.
executive session. Oh, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Next will be a closed meeting. Executive session will be held in pursuit of Chapter 551, Texas Government Code, 551087, Government Code to discuss incentives, commercial and industrial business prospects, Project Lucky Go and Spindletop Concrete. We close this meeting here at 8:32. Roll call.
Daryl Anderson. Beverly Raymond. Christopher Smith. Ellen Clark. Harold Doucette. Jerry LeBeau.
Here?
You have a quorum.
Good. Can I get a motion and a second to adjourn?
Second.
Meeting adjourned at 8:56.